All right, welcome back to my channel. I'm Cole Smith, and as you know, I do videos on Tableau, Python, and SQL. So I got a great series for you today. Next several videos, I got a great series, right? So I'm gonna go over videos, over content about the Maven Analytics Northwind Traders project that I did a couple of weeks ago. So I'm gonna break it down into different sections, right? So I'm gonna do an introduction video into what the goal of the project was, as well as how I think about preparing my data prior to building a dashboard, right? Then I'm going to go over some different hierarchical data type techniques that I used to build out the dashboard in a way that I thought would be dynamic and be able to sustain over a long period of time. And then another series of videos, I'm going to go over different features that I did in my dashboard that I thought were really useful and other people can utilize them as well. So I'm going to go over and show you the dashboard real quick, just so you can get a look at what I produced. Then I'm going to go over to the website and just kind of read over the description of what the goals were. And then I'm going to go into Visual Studio and go into Python and go into and show you guys how I think about how I approach these problems. Right. All right. So let's get into it. All right, so here's my dashboard. It says Northwind's Trader Executive Dashboard. And basically the way the dashboard works is I have a year of order date, which I can switch in and out of. And then I have employees where I can switch in and out of my employees and see their data. So I can see profit by employees, I can see profit by customers and profit by categories, as well as products that are discontinued. And the dashboard is off. You can filter on anything. I can click on it. The rest of the dashboard updates as you would expect it to do. So pretty, nothing crazy, pretty simple, I would say, but I think pretty aesthetically pleasing. I try to keep it very simple with the colors and the text. And I wanted to get, I didn't want to overload too much information. But as you can see, it's working in a hierarchical nature. I have like employee name and then the manager name. So for example, I'm looking at Andrew Fuller right now, it means I'm getting all my employees. If I come down to like Lauren Callahan, I'm getting Lauren Callahan, all her employees, as well as Andrew Fuller, who's her employee, right? And one of the things I did for sustainability was I was able to make my dashboard filter based on the current logged in employee. Now, you don't see that right now because I'm not using an Active Directory group. So like, it's just, I'm just using like a parameter to be able to figure out who's, saying this person's logged in. But in the real world, Lauren Callahan would come up and she would come in, log in, and she'd only see her data. Andrew Fuller would see the entire company. Okay. All right. So this is Maven Analytics, and from what I've seen from LinkedIn, if you guys are definitely trying to get into data analytics, I would definitely check them out. Some of them have great training, challenges like this. They're really there to help you. So I would definitely check it out. But so let me go ahead and read over to you what the objective of the project was. So it says, for the Maven Northwind Challenge, you'll be working as a business intelligence developer for Northwind Traders, a global import and export company that specializes in supplying high quality gourmet food products to restaurants, cafes, and specialty food retailers around the world. Now, as part of your role, you will be tasked with building a top-level KPI dashboard for the executive team. Its purpose should be to allow them to quickly understand the company's performance in key areas, including sales trends, product performance, key customers, and shipping costs. The dashboard should be built to evolve and accommodate new data over time, but you're encouraged by your manager to have insights and recommendations ready to share to VPs. This is your chance to impress. Now, down below here, you have about the data set. So it says sales and order data for Northwind Traders, a fictitious gourmet food supplier, including information on customers, products, orders, shippers, and employees. So you can download the data set. It pulls up the zip file. I open it up, right? Now what you get is basically a folder with like a list of different files. and then you get like a data dictionary. Now, my approach to this project, I really wanted to not necessarily focus on these like KPIs. I really wanted to focus on being able to have the data evolve. And I think one of the things, it's for me, which I thought would be fun, it would be to work on creating a hierarchical data set that would allow different users to come in and see their managers, see just their selves or all the company, and then be able to play off of that. Like it's very common in the workplace that you're like, you may be a director and you want to see all your people's data, or maybe you only want to see the managers below you. So just adding that flexibility, I thought would be really key. And then from there, I could kind of build on some of the metrics. So I got like sales data, I got product performance. I didn't go into all of them, but I just want to do a few and just kind of keep that general concept, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the data dictionary, right? So when I'm approaching these problems, the thing that I'm looking for and I'm really trying to think about is a couple of features, right? So as I'm preparing, most of what you're doing in data analytics is going to be cleaning up data. So I'm looking for duplicates. I'm looking for columns that may need to be transformed. So what that means is maybe I got a column that the date maybe not in date format that I want to see it in. Maybe I want to change that. Maybe I have maybe I need to convert currency into something else. I need to transform it into something that's more useful to me, right? I'm looking for columns that may have the same name. So when I start to merge them, maybe I need to change like employee.customer to say employees_customer. So that way I'll merge it with another type of customer. I'm able to distinguish that, as well as looking for any anomalies. So maybe I have sales data that's like, 3 standard deviations out there. How do I handle that? Do I want to take it out? Do I want to do some type of averaging or percentile to overwrite that number? So there's some things to think about, right? And over time, you'll get better at it. I'm just going to go and show you some of the things I did with this data set to get it cleaned up prior to actually to loading it into Tableau. So again, here's the data dictionary. And basically there's a few tables, right? So there's orders, order details, customers, products, and categories and employees, right? So simple things that you want to look for, right? So if I see order and order details, you should be thinking of it as an order could be like an order at like a fast food place. So like I have an order for chicken nuggets, a burger, and a fry, right? The order details are going to probably be a line item for each food item. And then the master or the rolled up version, like the final receipt, is probably going to be that order. So my expectation on this order details, I have an order ID that's going to map back to that order, right? And then I may have a product, which be the product like the chicken nuggets, right? So like that would be a dimension table it's a dimension table for each, like where that product will live, right? Where I can get information about that different product. So for example, I expect to see, multiple line items for a given order, but I don't expect to see duplicate orders, right? So these are things that as I'm going through it, I'm going to be checking for. Okay, so let me go ahead and go over to Visual Studio. So I just brought in a few packages like Pandas, NumPy, SQLite, which the SQLite part I'll discuss later. That's in the hierarchical part, which is down here, but we'll do that in another video. So a lot of times what I like to do is I just like to see what the data looks like. It makes me feel comfortable being able to see it. Like I can kind of quickly just see how things are working and just really be able to visualize it, right? So you pull up categories, right? Let's see what we get back. So I'm going to pull up the prompt here. All right, so so just in case you're not sure how to read this, right? This index is basically just a list, right? And I'm getting a list of category ID, category name, and description, right? And I'm getting 8 rows and I'm getting 3 columns. So which tells me right here, but I did the head of 10. So I know this is all the data that's in there. And I can clearly see there aren't any duplicates. I don't see anything odd. So I can move on to like the next like I can move on to like the next section, right? And see what am I getting that may be weird. So I'm gonna go ahead and comment this out because I don't really want to see that. Okay. So for customers, right, I'm gonna go ahead and roll this up. All right, let's see what we get back. Okay, so for this list here, we have customer ID, customer name, contact title, customer city, and customer name. Now, you remember a few minutes ago, I was pointing out how like you may have like, when you start to merge your data set, you may end up having like columns that will be duplicates across different tables. And you see here how I renamed the columns from city to customer city, country to customer, and customer country. I did that because if I come back here on this, like on the data dictionary, if I come down to employees, I have employee city, I have employee country. So when I go to try to merge all this data, that's going to be a conflict. So I want to handle that now, right? So again, these are things that I'm thinking about. Another thing that I'm thinking about, right? So I see there's 10 rows. I know it's all there. If there was more than 10 rows, I may want to look to see, do I have duplicate customer IDs? In this case, I clearly don't, but a way that I can quickly do that is writing something like this, right? So I can say, I'm going to print this out. I'm going to say customers group by. And I always like to do mine as a list because typically you're going to be grouping by more than one column. So I'm going to say customer ID. And then outside of the parentheses, I'm going to pass in it again. I typically do it like this as well. I'm going to say customer ID. And then I'm going to say, oh, sorry guys, make sure I'm in the right spot. Yeah, so, and then I'm going to say dot count. Okay, and let's roll this again. And I should get 1-to-1, exactly, right? So for each one, I'm only getting one, so I know I'm good. So this is a very common thing that I'm doing. I'm looking for places where I have duplicates because I think that's probably the number one thing you're going to deal with is duplicates or like missing data or data that's an anomaly. You have to know how to handle it. And depending on what model you're producing is going to dictate how you handle it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop that. All right, so let's go ahead and comment this out as well. And all this code is going to be, it's in my GitHub, and I'll post a link. And what I'll do is I'll clean this up as well. So you necessarily, like, I'll put some details about what I'm doing because I don't want to like eliminate this part. I think it's important to see how I go about this. Now, this is a very simple example. If I was building a model, there'd be a lot more like me checking for anomalies and things like that. But again, I think it hits the point home. So I'm going to skip over the employees. We're going to skip over that. I'm going to let it run, but I'm going to skip over it. Okay, so then, okay, so then we get to like our order details, right? And if you see here, I changed my unit price from order detail, from unit price to order details, unit price. My assumption is that, yeah, come down to like 85 here, I have unit price in multiple places. So I wanted to be able to distinguish what my order price was. And when I did my order details here, as you can see, when I got to like the revenue section, at the order details, I wanted to be able to add a column that had like revenue because we didn't have a revenue column. We had the unit price of the item, which would have, I'm guessing would have probably come from the product, and something we could check before I came from product, as well as our discount. So I took our unit price minus our discount times the quantity and was able to get the revenue for that, right? For each line item. And then I have the orders here as well. So like, let's just run and see what this looks like. Okay, so this is pretty interesting, right? Okay, so again, this is an order detail. So you have your order ID, which is going to be in your orders table as well. And for example, we here, I'm assuming they're in order, but let's not assume they're not. Let's assume they are for this example. We have 3 that are they're 0, 1, 2, 4, 8, and we have 3 unique different product IDs. They don't, in theory, they should be unique, like you shouldn't see 11 twice for a given order ID because it would all be, they'd all be part of the same, they'd have, the quantity would just be one record. So if it makes sense, and then basically just add the revenue. So something here I would check as well is to see, okay, just to see if there's any issues, like things I might want to check is, do I have duplicate product IDs for a given order ID? Because I do, I'm going to want to sum that up to get one record to get that granularity the way I want to be, or the way I want to see it represented, if that makes sense. So I'm going to get out of this. Yeah, so same thing here with products. Like I'll run the product so you guys can see that as well. So product is interesting. So you can kind of see, the product ID, the product name, the quantity per unit, product price, discontinuing category ID. This is interesting here because think of this as a dimension table. There's no facts on it, right? It's just information about it's just attributes about a given product, right? And as you can see here, there's also this category ID, which links back up to the top. So like how we had like different groupings of different like categories of food. There's like each product, there's multiple products in one given category, right? So that's how they link up there, which is important to think about. So it just kind of gives you an understanding of how this is actually being done, how this data is being linked together. And again, something like this here, we have 10 rows, but something I'd want to check for again is, do I have duplicates in my product ID? I may want to look to see if I have any blank product names. Maybe I need to update those, go back to like the DBAs or whatever, see if that's make sure that's fixed. The discontinued column, make sure I only have zeros and ones. Maybe in the transfer data that was missed, I just want to make sure that makes sense, right? Also, my category ID, something I may be thinking about. I want to make sure that my category IDs are actually listed in my category table, which is up here, right? Or yeah, up here. What I don't want to see is a category that's listed in my product that doesn't exist in my category ID, because more than likely it's going to get dropped or I'm not going to know what the category is. So just some things to think about with that. Okay. So that primarily, I'm not going to go too much into it. I don't want to drag this video on too much longer, but typically the way I like to have my data from once I've kind of cleaned it up is I usually like to, if I can, put it all in one data set and only bring back the columns that I want, right? So what I like to do is I like to just merge all my data, and then I'll, depending on what data I'm trying to, like what I don't want to lose will dictate how I do my joins, or in my case, this merge, right? So in the merge function in pandas, like if you hover over, you can see like the help, or in this case, basically the comments that you put in the function. But yeah, so I can see like I'm doing a right basically means I'm joining on orders, and I'm doing a left join, and I'm doing an employee ID, right? And the way I think about it, and because I'm trying to do my data around employees, I don't want to drop an employee. So what I'm saying is, if an employee doesn't have any data, I still want to include them because I want to know this employee hasn't produced anything, right? I want to be able to figure out why that is and how can I help them. And if employee's doing really well, maybe I can have that employee coach up the other employee. So everything's centered around the employee. So I'm joining to the orders based on employee ID. So I know this employee ID, this employee got that order, right? And I just continue this process again and again. Here I don't say how, because how or the join is it's by default an inner join. So here I'm saying, okay, I have, I basically want to take the employees with the customers, with the customer data. So basically, like if my employee doesn't have any customers, I would lose that employee, which you can make the case here that maybe I should have just did a left join, which would make sense. That way I keep all my employees, even if they didn't have a customer. in this data set, everyone did have at least a customer or some type of order. So it doesn't matter. But these are the things you should be thinking about as you're going through the motion, right? And again, the same thing with order details. I'm doing an inner join. Again, I probably should have did a left join here because I did that up here with the orders. But because, just for consistency purposes, I should have probably done that because basically if you think about it like this, if I did a left join on the employees with the orders, I'm going to have all the employees, which means I could have, but so effectively I didn't drop any orders, but I'm able to merge on the order details. So that is working, but you should be consistent in the sense of if I'm going to do the orders as a left join, I should have also did the order details as a left join. But if the employee doesn't have an order, then I'm not going to get the order details either. So it doesn't necessarily matter in this case, but something to think about. And again, I just kept the same consistency. I just did inner joins for the products, for the categories, and for the shippers. And then I exported all as a data CSV. So effectively, basically what I said was for a given employee, return all their orders. If basically in a nutshell, if the employee doesn't have an order, return the employee even if they don't have an order, which is fine. So even when I did my inner joins, I was still able to keep that employee at that point. So so I basically ended up getting this data CSV, which basically just compiled all the data for all of them, and it basically effectively gave me at a granularity that I really liked. And that granularity was basically the lowest granularity for that was at the order detail level, so each line item. And then on top of that, I was able to get my categories, get the category listed on there, who was the shipper, and like who was a customer. Because those are effectively just attributes of the order detail, which is each line item. All right. So that's it for how I kind of go through the process of trying to, like, in a simple manner, how I try to how to try to go about how to do my preparing of data, eliminating duplicates, looking for anomalies. More than likely I'll come back with a video where I go through anomalies and just more of those centric things. But that's really how I merge data, how I check for duplicates. So in the next video, I'm gonna go over how I handle the employee data in the hierarchical part, which I think is really, really cool. I'm gonna show you how I did it in multiple different ways. It's really fun. So don't forget, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this content. If you have any questions, anything like that, please put a comment down below, and I will check you guys out next time. Peace.